Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm David Noble. Now, a few days ago I was watching a video from Beth1 where she was trying to predict the driver lineup on the grid for 2026, and at the end of the video she challenged other content creators to have a go. So, as I was struggling for inspiration for a video, I thought, yeah, why not? Now, it takes all about 5 seconds before you realise this isn't a simple task. I mean, for a start, with the new regulations coming in, the pecking order of the teams now won't necessarily be what you'll have in 2026, and how successful a team is can have a great effect on the kind of driver lineup they may end up with. I mean, it's not impossible, just kind of unlikely, that Williams, for example, could ace the new regs and be fielding World Championship winning drivers again by 2026. You know, nothing is quite definite at the moment. It's also difficult to predict which young drivers might make the grade and get to F1 and which won't. You know, I mean, a couple of years ago, no one had really heard of Yuki Tsunoda, but here he is. You know, a few years before that, the temptation might have been to include Raffaele Marciello, who around 2014 was an Italian driver who was part of the Ferrari Driver Academy and had just won the European Formula 3 Championship. Or maybe even including Nick de Vries, a driver who in 2012 McLaren thought highly enough of that they featured in the Toon cartoon. You know, alternatively, in 2017, did anyone really think Nicholas Latifi would be on the grid? And to be honest, I think that people now can't believe that one of this year's rookies ever got to F1. It makes it very difficult to work out who's going to be where, who's going to be on the grid, who's not going to be on the grid. So we can just kind of make educated guesses at the end of the day. Partway through writing my plan for this video, I realised that I'd gone slightly off plan, and instead of explaining why I thought certain drivers would be racing for certain teams, I'd ended up with some kind of fanfic season preview, so enjoy! Hi, I'm David Noble, the year is 2026 and this is my season preview. Now, the first team I want to talk about are the new Ineos team, fielding a driver lineup that seems to be in the process of trying to buy themselves out of their contract. But why would George Russell and Max Verstappen, both championship winners for the team formerly known as Mercedes, be trying to get out of it? Simples. Mercedes as a team have withdrawn from Formula 1, selling their remaining shares to Ineos to form the Ineos F1 team. With Toto having left to concentrate more on the Formula E side when Lewis left, with the team looking vulnerable in the drivers and teams championships, they just don't look like the all-conquering powerhouse they were until recently. Now, while Ineos are no longer a works team, they do at least have equal input and parity, in theory at least, with both Aston Martin and McLaren, who are both race-winning outfits under the new regulations. And let's be honest, any team, at least for the moment, that fields George and Max can't be counted out. So, as we say about Red Bull. Now, it's kind of been a bit of a struggle for Red Bull in recent years. Max left the team at the end of 2022 after Red Bull struggled to get on the pace under the newer regulations. You know, Adrian Newey has since cut back on his input to the team, concentrating on other projects that currently neither he nor Red Bull seem to be willing to discuss. You know, following last year's performance in the start of the season, Dietrich again threatened to pull the plug on the F1 team if they hadn't improved, which thankfully they did in 2025. You know, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson both scoring regular podiums at the tail end of last year. And the team does look to have started to get back on top of its issues. You know, talk about VW coming in under the latest engine regulations to explore the more environmentally friendly synthetic fuel that they're talking about introducing. It's certainly got people talking. You know, with the increased performance, Red Bull are keeping their lineup for 2026, with Yuri Vips splitting time between the reserve role and, you know, joining the Red Bull DTM squad. Now, Ferrari. Now, the experience much loved by the Tifosi lineup at Ferrari of Charles Leclerc and Mick Schumacher continues for another season together, as they've both signed 2-year deals. Now, Charles missing out on the championship win 2 years in a row might have put a strain on his relationship with Ferrari. However, coming off his most successful season yet, taking 5 wins, including his first win at Monaco, and even sharing a win at Le Mans with Robert Schwartzman and Marcus Armstrong, kind of looks like the love affair might continue for a little bit longer at least. You know, Mick looked comfortable straight away at Ferrari, but didn't get his first win for the team until last season, which he's now looking to build on to take the fight to his more experienced teammate on a regular basis. Maybe he could be in a shot with the championship as well. McLaren. Race-winning team under the new regulations, long-time McLaren driver Lando Norris will be hoping to keep his new teammate Christian Lundgaard behind him as he hopes for a more consistent package going into the new season. With the field spread being quite small, Lando last season had races fighting with the championship leaders and others where he was solidly stuck in the midfield because last year's chassis exhibited some very track-specific traits, but with the question marks over Ineos' performance this season and a potentially stronger relationship with the Mercedes engine department than they've had in previous years, you can't ever rule them out of possibly winning their first title since 2008. Christian Lundgaard may seem a strange choice to fit into the second seat as his spell at Alpine didn't exactly go to plan, but if you compare his results to his ex-teammate, it's pretty clear that he suffered the lion's share of the bad luck. Could the marriage of convenience between McLaren and after Ricciardo's late call to retire at the end of 2025 actually be a blessing? He does need to put in the results though, because if Pato O'Ward hadn't already signed a contract for 2026, we could have been talking about him in that seat instead. Which takes us to Alpine. So while we're talking about Christian Lundgaard and his ex-team, let's take a look at Alpine. Oscar Piastri, taking 2 wins last season, put something of a gloss on what was actually quite a poor season, having finished third in the championship in 2024. The team always seemed to threaten potential, and one season it will come to them, and that every year they take 3 steps forward and seem to take 2 steps back the following year. The 2025 though certainly looks like it has the potential to be a 3 steps forward kind of year, with the arrival of Teo Pourchaire from Alfa Romeo, whose 6 podiums in 2 seasons and perhaps the 8th best car on the grid just kind of confirms everything we've known about him for a long time. Aston Martin. The unofficial Mercedes Works team, with them now being the only team on the grid that Mercedes own shares in, Aston still has some work to do. Several of Merck's former team members have signed on in recent years, and when they're fully incorporated into the structure it will be formidable, but question marks kind of remain over the driver lineup. Lance Stroll has put to bed complaints that he's only in F1 because of his dad a long time ago, but that doesn't mean he's answered the question about whether he has what it takes to lead a championship challenging team to victory. He does at least have a bit of experience, unlike his new teammate Frederick Vesti, who, coming into the season as something of an unknown quantity from an F1 perspective. The 2023 F2 Championship spent last year sitting on the sidelines as a Mercedes test and development driver after his deal at Williams kind of fell through the previous year when Williams switched to Alpine engines. As a result, he's had very little running in any single-seater equipment for the last 2 years and could be a little bit rusty at the start of the season. The talent is clearly there, but as we've seen with people many times in the past few years in reserve roles, sitting on the sidelines is no substitute for actual track time. If Aston can keep him into 2027, then we might see some real progress. Now, AlphaTauri go into the new season with consistency in their driver lineup, fielding Dennis Hauger in his 3rd year with the team, Jack Crawford in his 2nd. Whilst there were calls in the early part of last season for one of them to replace Liam Lawson after he had a poor start to the season, his recovery in the second half means that he keeps the seat and the AlphaTauri duo have to wait longer for their shot. Still, regular points and the occasional podium are still looking at possibilities. Dennis Hauger will be hoping to add to his tally of 3 podiums to show that he's the guy who should be in that red seat. Crawford will be hoping to be on his pace now he's more experienced to make his own case. Now, Williams, the recovery continues. Whilst finishing 8th might not look great progress on paper, the team are in the mix for points almost every weekend. We're only 20 points off 5th last year, such is the closeness of the field. They certainly have a strong lineup as well. Carlos Sainz come in as team leader, and he's been good at picking up loose points where they're going available. And his teammate Guan Yu Zhao is not exactly a slouch either. His signing has brought strong marketing potential for Doralton Capital and their growing Asian markets, and has kind of justified their investment as their growing sponsorship portfolio is proving a strong foundation for future success. 2026 might not be their year for breaking the top 4, but definitely heading in the right direction. Alfa Romeo, on the other hand, are a team that's future seems a little up in the air. With the withdrawal of Alfa Romeo as the marquee turns to electric racing, the team are kind of operating on a shoestring until a new buyer comes in. Still, with the lineup of Arthur Leclerc and Gabriel Mini, they definitely have potential on the driver front, and if spare points are available, always the chance for a result. Uralkali SMP Andretti. Yeah, no team has had such a roller coaster few years as Uralkali SMP Andretti, and I have to say the full name, and I still snigger about the abbreviation because it's USA, despite the fact that they're still 2/3 Russian. Anyway, after the disastrous on-track performance of 2021 to the frankly bizarre PR nightmare of 2022, we're now hopefully in a period of shared ownership that will point to some sustained period of stability for the team. The steps from 2022 to now have been well documented, but we'll go through them anyway. When it became clear that no amount of beating the drum for Nikita Mazepin was from both his father and William's story, combined with some strange comments to say the least thrown in the direction of Mick Schumacher, was going to solve the PR problem that was Nikita, he ended up having to be sidelined. With Dimitri announcing the redundancy of Haas engineers in a press conference while they were still working on the 2023 car at the Ferrari hub in Maranello, it kind of then fell to Ferrari and Liberty Media to try and keep the team going. With the drop-off in TV in the US after they lost their American team Haas, Liberty were kind of desperate to reintroduce an American presence on the grid. And following comments from Mario Andretti regarding how US-based drivers had issues getting the super license points, they increased the points given for both Championship and the Indy 500, meaning that Colton Herta suddenly became eligible for an F1 drive. Liberty then approached the Andretti team themselves initially to see if they'd buy the team outright, but, they don't quite have that kind of F1 money. But Ferrari did know some Russians that could help, so enter SMP Racing. Dimitri offloaded 2/3 of his shares in the team, split between the two parties, and they kind of installed an independent team CEO to oversee the management without their interference. Except for the driver lineup, clearly, as Colton Herta will take one seat lining up beside the SMP-backed Robert Schwartzman. So, SMP Schwartzman, Andretti, Herta. Yeah, well, we know where we are with that one anyway. With that lineup and the beginning of some stability returning, the fight back to some sort of credibility begins. Last season, did the Andretti name increase viewers in America? Kind of hard to tell, to be honest with you, because with Jack Crawford turning up at AlphaTauri and having a growing fan base of its own, it's kind of typical. You wait ages for an American driver to show up and suddenly two show up at once. With everything going on, it will certainly make for an exciting season anyway. With 5 teams who could potentially get wins and a couple more that are definitely looking like they could improve compared to the previous few years, driver lineups on the grid is incredibly strong as well, so we can expect lots of action and lots of interesting side stories and possibly controversy that we love so much. Thank you for watching, bye bye. So what do you think? Are my team and driver stories 2026 pure fan fiction? Or do you think there could be actually any chance of it happening? So thoughts and comments down below as to what you think might happen. Anyway, thanks to Beth for kind of inspiring this, whatever it is. Like and subscribe if you're new here. My content isn't normally quite this surreal. But as always, take care and thank you for watching.